I wanted to make a video on things that have improved my photography in the last year or so, and I was thinking about it. And I've been thinking about this topic for a long time because I'm still in the process. I think I'll always be in the process of improving, or trying to improve at least, because I want to take beautiful wildlife shots. Actually, I just had an encounter with a deer. I was climbing up this ridge here where I'm sitting, approximately where I'm sitting right now. There was a deer, and I was just climbing up this ridge, and I managed just to see it, and it didn't run away. It wasn't scared, so I just sort of kind of kneeled down in the grass and took a few shots of it. I'm not sure if I got any good shots, but I think I got one or two that I liked. Of course, you can't really tell until you kind of get home and process the photos. There could be problems like motion blur or whatnot. That's kind of hard to see at the back of the camera. But anyway, back to the topic. I was distracted. I wanted to talk about things that have improved my photography in the sort of past year or two. So number one, I think, really important is self-critique. I think when I first started taking pictures of things, of wildlife and birds, I more just sort of took pictures of things I thought looked good, and I didn't really apply too much self-critique while I was viewing my photos, editing them, or selecting them to show to others. It was more of just taking pictures of birds. You know, it's cool to take pictures of birds, and when you finally get a shot of a bird that's sharp, it just looks cool because you can see all that beautiful feather detail. But you know, at the same time, if you're only paying attention to sharpness and color and not really to composition and not really to what you're putting in the frame and what you're leaving out of the frame, you know, the general elements of composition, then I think that you may not really eventually get to the point where you can improve, or at least take pictures that you really want to take. So self-critique, actually looking at my photos and seeing what I liked, what I didn't like, I think that was really important, because that helped me start a feedback mechanism, a loop, where now when I'm in the field and I see something, I can take a picture of it using sort of the elements of critique that I've applied to my own photos and looking at them. And this feedback mechanism is so important, you know, to recognize all the different elements you want to put in and take out of your photo, because in the field, you're not going to have time. Typically with wildlife, with landscapes and macros, you might have more time. And even with landscapes, you may not have a lot of time. But with wildlife, you definitely won't have a lot of time to take the shot. So you need to have those elements in your mind accessible very quickly. You need to be practiced at it. Just like when you want to learn to play a piece of music on the piano, you can't just play through it once. You can sight read it through, but you can't have the facility or familiarity with it until you play it dozens of times over, hopefully without mistakes, dozens of times over the right way. Then you'll gain a familiarity, a motor memory. So self-critique helps that motor memory in the field, so you can rapidly decide which elements you want in your photo and which elements you want out of your photo. And there's something that's related to wildlife photography, mainly just for wildlife photography, I think. And it sort of got in the way of this critique process. It's a little bit of a tangent. It's not exactly related to what I was talking about, but it's taking record shots. Record shots, you know? If you see a new species, your first instinct is to take a record shot. But in 2025, I essentially decided I would no longer focus on taking record shots of birds. I like seeing new birds and adding new birds to my list, so naturally I don't want to miss a bird, especially if it's a rare bird. Now that doesn't mean I'm never going to take record shots again, especially if the bird is very rare. But I have decided to really tone down my taking of record shots, because that sort of mindset of finding new bird species and focusing on just identifying new bird species as opposed to bird photography sometimes has distracted me in the past. And that's natural, because, you know, if you love birds, you probably want to see a lot of species. But anyway, I think that has really freed my mind a little bit to focus more on photography rather than just pure birding. So I'm not going to give up birding. Oh, there's a crow right there. Anyway, I'm not going to give up birding, but what I am going to do is really tone down taking record shots so I can focus on this process of trying to get the composition that I want. And within that sort of critique process and composing in the field, there's the element of refining. And by refining, I mean the process by which you sort of start out with an initial composition in the field, and then you sort of change things around a little bit, change your composition a little bit, change your camera settings so you can arrive more closely. You can arrive closer to that target goal, that ultimate ideal composition that you want. And that's not really the same thing as, taking lots of photos randomly. It's really a sort of thoughtful process where you kind of, okay, you take an initial composition, or you just look at it through the viewfinder and you decide, well, that's not exactly what I want, but maybe you take still a shot or two, like the safe shot, but then you kind of refine that process, and then you kind of use that process to get closer and closer to something that's more ideal. So I think in general, this whole conversation can be summed up by saying that the thing which helped me take more shots that I want to take is really thinking more about composition in the field, and also to some extent behind the computer as well, because behind the computer, when you're editing, post-processing your photo, post-processing is important. When you're post-processing your photo, you'll also make minor adjustments, like to the cropping and to the tones and whatnot in your image. And that sort of thoughtful self-critique process also applies there. So I really tried in the last year to improve my post-processing, really learn the tools of Darktable. That's the editor I use, Darktable. To really learn the tools of Darktable so that I can kind of arrive closer to the final image that I really want. And I think that's helped a lot in general. So applied across all these domains, in the field, composing in the field, just thinking about what kinds of compositions I want and what I really like in a composition. And then also applying this little bit of self-critique and analysis to post-processing as well. So I think, you probably all wanted me to say gear, right? Buying a new camera, that helped me improve my photography. I don't think gear will help very much. A minimum amount of gear is, of course, necessary. If you don't have a camera, you can't take a picture. If you don't have a long lens, you probably can't take too many pictures of birds, although it is definitely possible to take pictures of birds with shorter focal lengths on occasion. But anyway, my point is that gear is probably not going to help very much, but of course, more advanced gear can help you increase your keeper count a little bit when confronted with a tough situation. So, for example, a quick example would be IBIS. If my camera didn't have IBIS and my lens didn't have vibration reduction, if there was no vibration reduction system at all, then I would have a lot of trouble getting the shots that I get. So there are many shots that I've gotten so far that simply would not be possible with IBIS. I would have to increase my shutter speed and maybe even use a tripod. And I almost never use tripods in the field. So that's the kind of thing that aspect of gear that can help you. Oh, maybe another thing, again, sort of related to critique, but it's not self-critique, is to put my photos out there, let other people see them and comment on them. It's always a scary thing to do. But certainly doing that, adding the social aspect to critique, or adding the social aspect to evaluation of photography, always, I think, helps, because, when you have this kind of a little bit of pressure to show your photography to someone else, you're really going to pay extra attention to it. It's just the way human beings are wired. So if you enjoy photography, even if you only do it for yourself, it is very useful to show your photography to other people. And, sometimes you'll get critical comments. And you know what? All the critical comments I've gotten were very helpful. They've always helped me improve, even though sometimes it's a little harsh to hear them. But, in the end, it's really important to show your photography to other people. Now, that's hard in this day and age because everyone these days is using AI, and there's all kinds of stuff on the internet. There's high-speed algorithms and whatnot. And I really think algorithms on the internet are kind of ruining photography, ruining art in general. I actually recorded a video, or at least a script for a video on that topic. I'm not going to go too much into that. It's a little bit hard to share your photography these days because, so many people are sharing billions of photos, and it kind of makes it seem that photography is just about mass production. And I think I watched another YouTube channel where a famous piano teacher on YouTube, said that he has 3 or 4 people, and he takes their opinion seriously. And if you can find a few people to show your photography to that you trust, the same people again and again, I think that can also help you improve. And one more thing I forgot to mention is critiquing other people's photos. If you can find somebody who also wants feedback, then you can give them feedback. And looking at another person's photograph and critiquing that person's photo can also often help you understand your own photography. Because if you only critique your own photography or look at your own photography, then you're only going to understand the sort of process through your own eye. But if you can understand the process through another person's eye, that can really help too. So those are the things that have improved my photography in the last year or so. Pretty much self-critique and applying that process through the post-processing stage and the out in the field stage. And I really do recommend that you apply critique to your own photography. I think it'll help a lot. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again next time.